So it's time for summary of the last session. I think we all spent extremely interesting 90 minutes discussing 6 interesting projects from different countries, different institutions. Next to me are sitting my colleagues from Auschwitz Museum, who were the moderators of the 6 discussions. Next to me is Justyna Korpak, then Magdalena Sudowrońska, Zuzanna Janusik, Marta Berecka, and Agnieszka Kita. And in a moment, we shortly tell you more about the discussion which took place in our rooms. What were the main questions? What were the answers of the authors of the projects? And please remember that my colleagues were moderators of the discussions. They aren't the authors of the projects. So if you have some questions regarding the projects, you would like to add some additional questions about the projects, you can always ask the authors who are sitting among us. So I'm a special case because I'm sitting here as a co-author of the project. That's why let me start the summary of the discussion. I will tell you in a few sentences about three discussions I had a chance to participate in. I presented a project Difficult Simply Words. This is a project which was created by International Center for Education about Auschwitz and the Holocaust many, many years ago, out of a need of creating an alternative way of visiting such a place as Auschwitz Memorial for people with special intellectual needs. And we decided to propose people with intellectual disabilities 2 hours long lesson, which is an alternative of a standard guided tour, which is a bit longer, which lasts 3.5 hours. And during these 2 hours, we are trying to explain people with special intellectual needs what Auschwitz was. What was the meaning of Auschwitz? What is the meaning of Auschwitz today? We try to answer to all their questions during the visit, and the most important part of the lesson of the project is that our guides are prepared to work with such visitors and are really flexible, and during the visit they are adjusting to the needs of the groups, because every group of visitors with special needs, I think in general every group is different, but especially people with intellectual disability, they are very, very different. We talked a lot about diversity today. So our guys at the very beginning, they try to recognize the needs, expectations of the needs, and then they are guiding the group towards their needs, towards their expectations. And maybe a few questions I got during our discussions. So I very liked the questions, what can we learn from these visitors, from visitors with special educational needs. And the most important for me, the most important lesson I took from there is that less means more. This is first rule of our meetings with such visitors. We really don't need to tell them everything. We don't need to cover every aspect of the history of Auschwitz. We really can choose, we really can focus just on some of them. And it really doesn't mean that their visit won't be successful, that they won't learn a lot about the place. So that's for sure. I heard the question also, what is special in these groups? And For me, this is absolute phenomenon of those people that all of them, really, all of them, all of the group I met, group of students with special intellectual needs, they are coming here with a really high understanding of the place. They don't have usually a big knowledge. They don't know usually a lot of facts about the place, but they understand really clearly that this is a special place, a place which requires their respect, and they give a huge respect to the place. So maybe that's for now. Maybe then I will add something more. So now, Justyna, can you tell something more about discussion in your room?
Okay, so thank you very much, Alicia. So first of all, I am not the coordinator of this project, but there is the coordinator here. So I'll ask kindly Ania to show up. So Ania, if you could show up, he's there in the corner. So that's Anna Dąbrowska. She's the president of Homo Faber Association, and they are conducting the project called Baobab. So they are in the city of Lublin, which is near to the border with Ukraine and with Belarus. Firstly, Ania was helping during the immigration crisis when people were crossing the border with Polish-Belarusian border. So she was one of the founders of the Grupa Granica, so people who were helping there. Then they were helping during the beginning of the war in Ukraine. So they were dealing with a lot of refugees who were coming to their city. And they wanted to do more just to help them there on the spot when they were coming. So they formed the Baobab that was supposed to be the place that is safe, where the people could come, where they could meet. And the very name, the Baobab, that all of the groups were asking, because we have 3 sessions, and during every session we were asked why Baobab. So as Ania kindly let us know, it is because of the tree. So there was the tree in Lublin on the market square. That was the black poplar, so the very popular tree in Poland. We don't have baobabs here, but it looked like the one. So people were calling it the baobab. The tree is not existing anymore. They needed to cut it down. But when they were thinking about the name for their project, for their place, for all of the people, for refugees and for the inhabitants of Lublin, they think, okay, so it's like the big place that is safe for people, so it should be the new Baobab. So that's why. And this place is really a place where, as Ania explained, old and new inhabitants of Lublin are meeting. So their goal is to help people to become independent. So those who were coming here, the refugees, they needed help with some doctor appointments or with legal process. They are helping, they are providing this help, but also they are having the workshops, they are open for everybody who needs help there. So the case is to help people to become independent, but also to prevent violence between the groups. So they wanted to start this job for the government, for their institutions in Lublin, but they wanted to cooperate, and they are cooperating with the mayor of the Lublin, with the institutions there. So they hope that in the future those institutions are going to do the job. And we have a few questions that were asked during all of the sessions. So firstly, we were very interested about the name, the Baobab, as I explained. Also, during every session, there was a question, so how citizens of Lublin have reacted when you have started their project. But as Anna explained to us, mostly because of the mayor of the Lublin, that they are grateful for. There was a good cooperation between the city and between their NGO. And also, there was the question at the very end, how if people are seeing the problem, if people are seeing that there is a lot of refugees who need help, and they are in their city. So we're also talking about that, yeah, that it is at first very hard to see, but she thinks that Lublin has changed. So we were hopeful that it's going to be better, and all of those services that are for refugees are also opened for the old inhabitants. So I want to thank you very much for those discussions and all of the people who were there during the sessions for your questions. So maybe Magdalena.
So thank you very much. We were discussing about the Pink Triangle Legacies project, and this project started with a book. With this book was written by Dr. Jake Newsom, who is a scholar of German and American LGBTQ plus history, and he's also the founder and director of the Pink Triangle Legacies project. Is Dr. Newsom in this room? Oh, yeah, he's there. And we had very vivid discussions, I must tell. And what about the project? This book was published in 2022, and the project started in 2024. So it is quite a new project. It is a project that is on the market, let's say, since 1 year and a half. And what it is based in US, and it is quite a small project. Small, I mean, in the meaning of the staff members, because there is only very few people working there, mostly part-time, also volunteers, and they produce resources on the topic that refers to trans society and their persecutions. They produce resources for wide audience, and these resources are available mostly online, and they are produced. They are created for classrooms, social media, community spaces, and of course mostly teachers use them, but they are for actually for general public, for educators. And what kind of resources there are? There are mostly biographies of the people who were persecuted, so we can learn about their history before the war, and then about what happened with them during the war. And what I like the motto of this project. The motto of the project is Queer History for Queer Liberation. So that talks us about the future plans. I would say plans for the future, because we discussed a lot that even after war, this actually memory of trans society was somehow forgotten, or we talked about long silence about this subject. We're talking about long silence about this subject. So in this motto, these plans for the future are included, but also we were talking about challenges of the project, and the main challenge is funding. So the future depends on the funding, of course. And a lot of information about the project can be found on the project website, pinktrianglelegacies.org. And I believe this information are really relevant because the website is quite young. It is only 4 months old. So thank you very much. And now I'm passing the mic to Susanna.
Thank you very much. Well, right behind me, Miško Stanisic, director of the Terraforming organization, and the person that chaired the committee under the IRA organization responsible for preparation also of the recommendations on teaching and learning about the persecution and genocide of Roma during the Nazi era. This is how then the Terra, as I understood, Terraforming organization came into the project, because the recommendations are more theoretical, and then important is implementation and working with the teachers, educators, museum employees, implementing all of those recommendations. Very important, what was pointed out was the difference between persecution and genocide of the Roma people, of the experience. And the result of the project is a series of the workshops. The first workshop took place in Austria. It had more theoretical and scientific form in terms of the workshop. And the second one took place in the Westerbork memorial site, to use the original site also to work and talk about how to implement all those regulations. We were discussing also that those recommendations were prepared also because of the fact after the Second World War, the subject of Roma persecutions was somehow forgotten, was not mentioned, was not represented. That several years ago, our organization prepared recommendations on teaching and learning about the Holocaust, and therefore also recommendations about Roma genocide and persecution was needed. This project, the third workshop of this project, will take place also in Belgrade. We received this printed materials. There is a QR code where you can sign in and you can participate. In this workshop also the local Roma and Jewish communities, youth will be invited to also listen to their voices and to include them in this project. We had several interesting conversations, such as important subject of not using obviously the gypsy wording, how important it is to use the Roma one. One of our representatives, colleagues from Portugal raised important issue of anti-Roma behaviors that are taking place in Portugal. He raised how ridiculous things are going on there, including the stereotype that Roma people are afraid of frogs, and that people nowadays in front of their shops are putting the figures of the frogs because of the stereotype. We were talking about the important differences between anti-Roma and anti-Gypsyism, in this case, terms, and how they relate to the racial issues. But really, I'm sure that Miško will tell you all that much more better than I will, because I still have a lot of questions, because I was really interested. 25 minutes was definitely not enough. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry if I mixed something, but I have this printed material. I'm happy to share it with you and to invite you to participate on behalf of the Terraforming organization and director. Thank you.
So it's my turn. The representative of Anne Frank House, Marta Klousas. Marta, could you just wave? So I would like to introduce you. So Marta took us to the world of significant stories to which we should not remain indifferent. And Stories That Move is a multilingual online toolbox for teaching about discrimination and diversity. And the main characters of the toolbox are young people, young students, and their voices, faces, their dilemmas, experiences are the base of the source, the toolbox. And we discussed that Stories That Move consists of 5 learning paths, which are seeing and being, facing discrimination, life stories, mastering the media, and finally taking action. And these paths are conclude the complete online sources, are the online sources for educators. And the strongest points of the toolbox are: first, through stories described, told by young people, learners might understand that someone else also experience the same dilemmas, the same problems, and in fact, in that way, it is a good example of a kind of peer-to-peer education. And the second issue is that learners do not receive easy answers to difficult questions. So they are encouraged to self-reflection, to discussion. And in such learning environment, it is a quite safe environment, I mean classroom, they can easily be trained how to properly respond to all forms of discrimination. And several issues have been discussed during our short session. So the most important seems to be, we discuss a lot about practical issues. So about the structure of the toolbox, the main mission, also that it's prepared for high school students and it's available in 8 languages. And of course, each language version has very unique story context. We also discussed a lot how much it is connected or not connected to or with the Holocaust education. And we also discussed that the toolbox mainly helps students to reflect on their own prejudices and how to fight with them. So this is the main aim of Stories That Move. That's all for now, but I'm also sure that Marta would like to tell you more if you are interested in. So thank you so much.
So last but not least, very interesting and I think important project from Rwanda. The author is Mark J. Gwamaka, and the name of project is Peace and Value Education, Building a Legacy of Unity and Reconciliation. This is, I think, really important and interesting project. I don't want to tell you about it because Mark is here and his stories and his way of speaking is incredible. So I think I don't want to take time because I won't be able to say it in such a great and interesting way and from the first hand. But what I want to highlight is that this project is dealing with really unique genocide because perpetrators and survivors were neighbors. So it is really difficult because they live still in the same country and they have to cooperate, they have to live, they have to build the future together. So this project, like Mark's project, are really important, not only to deal with the trauma, but also to create the future for the nation. They use many sources, many ways to discuss and to educate people because there are not only children, kids, school kids, but also parents, government, people from government, and so we can say it's dedicated for the whole society on different levels and different approaches. What is really important and what Mark highlight many times, the main aim is to teach children critical thinking, empathy, and personal responsibility. Because thanks to these characteristics, they can not only understand the genocide, how it happened, but also they give them tools to not repeat history in the future. What is really important and unique in this project is also to give the platform for perpetrators. But what is important, only these perpetrators who could recognize them as perpetrators, actually. So these people who understood what they did. So of course, here comes criticism, which we discussed also, because survivors, but not only them, were really disappointed, maybe angry, why you give the platform for these people, for murderer. But anyway, to understand what we discuss, what we make the conclusion, to understand and educate people in case of genocide is also understand perpetrators and how to become a perpetrators. What was really interesting in these short meetings, frankly to say, was that Mark gave not only information about the project, but also the deep background, how it comes to the genocide, how he was inspired, his personal history was really important in this case. I don't want to tell about it, but I think you should ask him, actually, because his history has a big impact on this project also. So of course, there was question how it works, what do you do actually, how the people from different backgrounds answer to this project. So many questions and answers. The story of our guests were really interesting, really deep. I think for me personally, it was really interesting and inspiring in future learning, educating in genocide and dealing with this kinds of problem like perpetrators and survivors, and to build the dialogue, what is, I think, the most important. And I hope all the participants of not only our panel but all learn that the dialogue and reconciliation could help us to build the better future. So not to tell too much and not take too much time. So I think I will finish here. Thank you.